We have fire. It's burning down pretty good now. Just wasted all this time and effort. Let's give this another shot. Hello, welcome back to another episode from Pale Horse Survival and Tactical. I'm Bill. Today I wanted to do something a little bit different. As I mentioned in previous episodes, I'm a practicing herbalist. I'm certified in herbal medicine, and I also earned a clinical certification in aromatherapy. I also study and teach health and nutrition in addition to all the primitive self-reliance skills. I try to teach self-sufficiency. The more that we know, the less reliant we are upon the system, and we all know the system exists for profit. They generally create issues and then offer solutions. And they hold those solutions hostage for monetary compensation. So it's something I don't agree with, and I'm very much against. So I've made it a huge point in my life to become as self-sufficient as possible, and I'm still working on a lot of it. Slowly been working my way towards more and more self-sufficiency as the years go on. Anyways, with that said, I wanted to share with you guys a daily regimen that I put together. It took me several years to come up with this, fine-tuning different areas of it, adding and subtracting to it, and to this is where I arrived at today. And what this is a testosterone boosting program that I devised that works amazingly well. You see a lot of supplements online that claim to boost testosterone, and a lot of it's just snake oil and placebos, and a lot of them are pretty expensive. You can put this together yourself. Not very expensive. It's a daily regimen that you can incorporate. It's going to improve your health. It's going to have positive impacts. But I just want to document what I do personally. What you do is up to you. And as a disclaimer, if anybody decides to do any of this and they experience any adverse health effects or whatever, you assume all responsibility for any problems that may occur if you attempt this. And I do it. It works good for me, so I'm just going to document what I do personally. What you do is your business. This entire video here is intended for informational purposes only. And so what I do, in addition to this, if you want to go all out, in order to boost testosterone, you have to incorporate changes in your life. And that is the part where most people fail, because the majority are undisciplined and they're not willing to give up beer, smoking, junk food, different things that have a negative impact on health, nutrition, and ultimately testosterone levels. If a person is taking care of themselves and they're healthy, there's no reason why testosterone levels should drop off. I'm in my 50s and mine were starting to drop off years ago, and I could have done like a few people that I know that are about my age, and they're on Levitra, they're on Viagra, and all that is a band-aid over gangrene. It does nothing to improve the health of the body. All Viagra does, basically commands the pituitary gland to dump a lot of nitrous oxide into the bloodstream. Nitrous oxide is the body's natural vasodilator, and it doesn't raise testosterone levels, it doesn't increase desire, it doesn't do anything like that. All it does, it dilates blood vessels, so that allows the blood to flow into the penis, and in order to obtain an erection. Other than that, it does absolutely nothing as far as improvement in health or nutrition. So it's basically it's a license for a lot of guys to continue drinking and eating junk foods and smoking and continuing to do those things which have brought on the sexual dysfunctions in the first place. And it'll work for a while, but eventually the health declines to a point where there's a heart attack or a stroke, or worse, death. And at that point, Viagra isn't going to help, or Levitra, or anything else. So anyways, with that said, health-wise, things that we do which are very toxic to testosterone levels. One are phytoestrogens and xenoestrogens. Phyto meaning plant or botanical. Phytoestrogens are botanical estrogens. And one of the worst, absolutely the worst and most toxic to testosterone levels is hops in beer. And every time I start to bring this up with people don't like to have their vices messed with, and men sit around, they drink beer, and they think it's a manly thing to do, and it is not. Hops are a very powerful botanical estrogen, and estrogen always destroys testosterone. So once the estrogen gets into the system, it begins to degrade testosterone levels. If a guy has a beer a day, maybe 2, probably not going to be any harm. But if a guy's putting away 6 a day or more, that's why you see a lot of heavy drinkers. They get the gynecomastia, the man boobs, the belly fat. That belly fat is estrogen building up in the fatty tissues around the waist. And that is one of the worst. Coffee contains a lot of cortisol. Coffee produces cortisol in the body. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and cortisol is also toxic to testosterone. So heavy coffee drinkers, plus coffee contains, if it's caffeinated, caffeine, whether it's coffee or soda pops or whatever, caffeine is a vasoconstrictor. It causes the blood vessels to constrict, which is also impedes circulation and blood flow. Caffeine also accelerates the aging process. It's a stimulant. I can go on, and I'll do videos on that. And I'm not trying to dog anybody. If you drink coffee, more power to you. I'm not proselytizing, just stating some facts here. Whether you choose to make lifestyle changes or not, that's completely up to you. And just passing on information and knowledge that I've attained through years of research. Another very xenoestrogens are chemical estrogens. And nowadays, it seems like they're almost everywhere, and they're responsible for a huge 22% decline in global testosterone levels since 1980. Xeno is a Greek word meaning hidden. These are hidden estrogens. They're synthetic estrogens, pesticides, solvents, gasoline, are some of the things that we are exposed to that are xenoestrogens or chemical estrogens. I'm going to pass on some very important information here. Register receipts, ATM receipts, are printed on thermal paper. If you look at the paper, it's kind of thin and it is slick looking. Well, that slick coating is an activator. The paper's a thermal paper. The slick coating is an activator, and it's an industrial chemical called bisphenol A, BPA for short. Some of you have probably heard of that. And whenever we handle a register receipt, the BPA readily absorbs through the skin, and it absorbs through fast within a few minutes and enters the bloodstream. Anything that's applied to our skin, our epidermis, will absorb through into the dermal layers into the skin, or into the bloodstream rather, bypassing the filtering and nullifying effects of the liver. The liver usually nullifies and filters things up to around 80%, roughly, give or take. Plays a very important role in that aspect. So register receipts, ATM receipts, we handle those on a daily basis pretty much wherever you go. And when I became aware of the toxicity of register receipts and how that is such a readily available way of being exposed to BPA, I start to avoid receipts as much as possible, or have the cashier drop it in the bag. And I tell cashiers all the time about that, say, hey, all you have to do is Google it up, toxicity of register receipts. There's a whole bunch of studies and information online that you can read on that. It's an established fact. It's not just a theory or a conspiracy theory. Plastics contain a lot of BPA, and there are BPA-free plastics. So you want to look, be aware of that. Also, in addition to the plastics, canned goods, there's a polymer coating on the inside of a standard can that contains food. And there are a few cans out now that says BPA-free cans, and if they are, it'll be printed on the label. There's not very many though, very, very few. And that polymer coating on the inside is very thin. If you empty out a can and you take a knife blade, once it's dry, take a knife blade and scrape on the inside, you'll see there's a clear coating that'll start to come off. It'll powder and flake off. That's that polymer coating, and that coating is in there to keep the contents of the can away from the metal. Sounds good in theory, but the problem is that BPA, it's an epoxy coating, a polymer coating. That BPA, that industrial chemical, that xenoestrogen, leaches into the contents of the can. Especially, all the contents will become contaminated with it to a certain degree. It's especially true of acidic contents like spaghetti sauces, things of that nature, because of the acidity in the tomatoes. BPA causes liver problems, high blood pressure. It's a carcinogen, among other things. You can Google that up too, BPA, bisphenol A. There's a lot of reading material on that online. So excessive sugar intake causes a spike in glucose, blood glucose. That's also not good for testosterone levels. these are just a few of the things that the major things that impact us are testosterone levels. Sleep is very important. Our bodies produce testosterone when we are primarily asleep, and it's important to get as much rest as possible, which is hard to do in this day and age because we're all working our butts off to keep our heads above water, but try to get as much sleep as you can, and you'll notice after a good night or two of sleep you'll feel more refreshed, more energized, and that is because your testosterone levels are higher. There's two types of testosterone. One is the free testosterone, and that's the one that we're most concerned with. And free testosterone, in order to remain in the bloodstream for a period of time, the molecule of testosterone has to bind to a molecule of cholesterol. That's why we have to have, in order to maintain decent testosterone levels, we have to have a certain amount of cholesterol in our bloodstreams. People have been living in fear of cholesterol, and they're the whole agenda of fat-free diets, and fat is the enemy, and our bodies need fat to a certain degree. I mean, you can overdo it, of course, you can overdo anything, and everything should be done in moderation. But there are good fats and saturated, unsaturated fats, etc. But having a decent level of cholesterol is necessary in order for that free testosterone to stay in our bloodstreams. Otherwise, it oxidizes quickly and is passed excreted from the blood. So what I do is in addition to trying to get as much sleep as I can, which isn't always possible, number one, I change my diet over completely. I don't eat fast foods. I don't eat processed refined sugars. I've tried to go as organic as possible, and no, I'm not a vegan. I eat meat as well as vegetables, and I guess you could say my diet is fairly ketogenic. Ketogenic diets are what our ancestors and forefathers existed on. A ketogenic diet consists of what you can find in nature: roots, nuts, vegetables, and meat. And our bodies can run on carbohydrates, or they can run on ketones or fats. They can run either or. I call it leaded or unleaded. And that's another video for another time. So without dragging this video out too far, I'm going to go ahead and go through what I do on a daily basis here and describe each one. The first thing I do is, and I take this on a daily basis, is good old omega-3. And omega-3 does assist in testosterone production. It's good for aches and pains, joint issues. A lot of bodybuilders will take it. It tends to lubricate the joints. And I get the one with the DHA in it. I take one a day, and these are 500 mils. I was taking 1,000 mils, and it kind of had a little stomach upset. And I take all this each and every morning. Now this is French maritime pine bark extract. This is a 300 mils. Well, they're actually 150 mils per capsule. I take 2 a day for 300 mils. This is a very powerful, this is from Pinus maritima, the maritime island pine. And I take 2 capsules a day. This is a very powerful polyphenol. It's a botanical constituent. It's an anti-inflammatory. If your arteries are inflamed, you're not going to get good blood flow and good circulation. And you can find these on eBay. Just Google up French maritime pine bark extract. Get the 300 ml variety, and all of this stuff's not very expensive at all. I can't remember what I pay for this. It's probably $12 a bottle or something like that. And so I take 2 of those a day, and this also helps with, it's a strong antioxidant, and destroys, helps scavenge up the free radicals in the system, as does some of the other stuff here. And it improves, helps with circulation. This is 2 very powerful botanical flavonoids. This is hesperidin and diosmin. Also find this on eBay. Just look for that same brand. Just type it into the search window. Again, about $11, $10.99 for this bottle. 180 capsules. And this stuff is very interesting. I take this as a Venal Tonic. The pharmaceutical cartel actually markets a drug called Venex, which treats venal issues, varicose veins, things of that nature, and they charge big money for it. Well, it's the same thing. It's all it is hesperidin. If you Google up a lot of the constituents of pharmaceuticals, you can find there a lot of it's derived from botanical sources. I believe it's 83%, something like that. Used to be 100% in the old days. Nowadays they're synthesizing and making a lot of artificial medications in the laboratories, and but you can still fall back on a lot of this, a lot of the botanicals. The botanicals haven't changed, and they're still just as effective, even though the times have changed. So hesperidin and then diosmin, interestingly enough, and I take that as a maintenance dose. It's the pharmaceutical cartel markets diosmin under it was Darflan and Diosmoplex, I believe, and I think there's a third, and they charge big money for it. They market it as a to prostate cancer patients. And diosmin, you can Google it up, anti-prostate cancer properties of diosmin, and you'll find a lot of clinical studies on it, that it is very toxic against prostate cancer cell lines. I take 1 of these a day. That'd be a 500 milligram capsule daily, and I take that as a maintenance dose as part of my regimen. My dad developed prostate cancer in his late 70s, and I'm in my 50s. I'm very healthy, so I just take this not only to maintain my peripheral arterial system, but also as an anti-cancer agent. And I see a lot of prostate cancer threads where, early detection is the key, and guys on there talking about, oh, I had my prostate removed, and thank God they caught it in time, and they go on and on and on about the treatment, but there isn't a word about prevention. They act like it's something that's unavoidable, like a flat tire, and that you're eventually going to get one. And but I'm of that mindset, a stubborn mindset, that it is avoidable. Cancer sets in because we have, as we age, our immune systems don't operate as efficiently as they used to. And a lot of people age, they exercise less, they don't eat as well, and so the immune system becomes compromised, and cancer, we develop cancerous cells throughout our lives, and our healthy immune systems are able to attack those. Our killer T cells, macrophages, attack those any cells that become step out of line, so to speak, and don't follow the correct protocol of apoptosis or cell death, and they destroy them. So all of us develop cancer from time to time, but our healthy bodies keep it in check. So anyways, that's just a little something I'm passing on. That's just personal information, what I use. What you choose to use is up to you. Or choose not to use. That's completely up to you. I also take just a men's multivitamin, age 50 plus. That's nothing special. And this here is one of my secret weapons. And I'm going to go ahead and divulge that on this video. These are 2 L-amino acids, arginine and citrulline. Also find these on eBay. Just look for the same brand and get it as a combo. They got to have both of them in here. 1,000 milligram tablets, and there's 120 tabs in here. I want to talk about this one for a little bit. Arginine is a precursor to nitrous oxide production in our bodies. Nitrous oxide is our body's natural vasodilator. That's all Viagra does. Viagra, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, Viagra commands the pituitary gland. It's kind of a complex process how it works, but anyways, it commands the body to release nitrous oxide, which dilates the blood vessels, allowing them to expand and increasing circulation. That's all it does. Well, arginine does basically the same thing, but it's not going to, if you take a Viagra, the effects within, I've never taken one, I've never needed anything like that, but within I don't know what I guess once you take it within 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, you're ready to go, but you're not going to take one of these. It's not going to act in the same way. Herbs, if you take a pill, a lot of the pharmaceuticals, a lot of times you'll get an immediate effect, or within 5 minutes, 30 minutes or whatever. Herbs don't always work that way. Sometimes, depending. If you're using one as a styptic to curb bleeding, to constrict blood vessels with a high tannin content, then yeah, it can do that. But a lot of the herbs build up in your body, and over time, and work a lot slower. And I found that that's how this works. So arginine basically works in that aspect, improving circulation. Citrulline is very interesting, and you can look up citrulline, L-citrulline, and arterial plaque deposits. A lot of clinical studies on that, on how it'll decrease inflammation of arteries, arterial inflammation rather, and also it is clinically proven in several studies to remove plaque accumulation in the arteries, and that, well, improves circulation. So this basically just tunes up the peripheral arterial system. And I started out at 1,000 milligrams initially, and it took about a month for me to start to notice, taking it every day, before I noticed a difference. I'm more alert, I have a lot more energy, a lot more energetic. Any of you that are bodybuilders, you'll know what this is, because a lot of bodybuilders take this to increase their workout times, and it also decreases recovery times. It produces a lot more blood flow to the muscles. That's why it says on here supports peak performance. And I've noticed a huge difference. I'm much more alert. I have no need for stimulants in the morning when I get up. Within a few minutes, 2-3 minutes, I'm wide awake, ready to go. If your body, a body that is in homeostasis or balance, has no need for stimulants. And the problem with stimulants, your body, such as caffeine, your body becomes dependent upon those. And you're going to need more and more and more, and then, of course, the stimulant wears off, and then you feel like crap, and you have the crash side. So, and I personally have experienced no negative effects with any of this stuff. It's been completely 100% positive. So, and you can find that on eBay, and the bottles are, I don't know, 15 a bottle or something like that. Just shop around on there. But I would get the same brand. I've been using this stuff for a long time. Now, my last part of my my thing is, I go out every spring and I harvest pine pollen, and I have a video on the channel on how to do that. And pine pollen is a very powerful, it's nature's most powerful botanical testosterone. This jar was filled all the way to the top. I still have quite a bit. I'll have enough to go. It'll be about March or April when I'll be harvesting pollen. Here's some more that I pour in here. And what I do, I take and I sprinkle about a third of a teaspoon. Yeah, maybe a little bit less. I've been kind of stretching it out. Maybe about a quarter of a teaspoon. I sprinkle it on my salad. I have an organic salad every evening with my dinner, and that's a raw salad. And I put baby spinach greens in there and artichoke hearts. I try to get all organic. Tomatoes, chickpeas, and sometimes I'll put hemp seeds on top, depending on what I have. And organic dressing, and I sprinkle a little bit of this on top, and just eat it that way. And I'll tell you, pine pollen, this stuff works big time. Now what I do, I have trees around my town that I harvest from that are Pinus canariensis, Canary Island pines. They have the largest pollen anthers out of all of the pine trees, and they just pour pollen out. And in this video, I'll put a link in the description box below to my pine pollen harvesting video. And so if anybody's inclined to go out and harvest pine pollen, I highly recommend it. You can also purchase pine pollen online, but I wildcraft. In other words, I wild harvest a lot of my own herbs and things out there. You don't get things fresher than harvesting them yourself. And wildcrafted herbs are always more potent. They contain a much higher level of beneficial constituents and vitamins than their cultivated counterparts, because they live in much harsher environments. They have to deal with drought. They're not cared for. They have to deal with pests and diseases, and constituents, polyphenols, terpenes, terpenoids, flavonoids, etc. are all constituents that the plant produces as part of its immune system, its botanical immune system, to protect itself from pests, diseases, etc. And those, when we ingest those and utilize them properly, they become our immune systems. It's amazing how nature is all tied in together. So that's why I always refer to our plant and animal life as our brothers and allies. Anyways, guys, this is pretty much it. And I eat 2 eggs every morning with real butter. I have no cholesterol issues or anything like that. I'm very active. I exercise with my work, very cardio, and exercise is another very important aspect. And that's pretty much it. I'll be doing other videos on herbalism and probably some essential oils, and of course the primitive self-reliance, bushcrafting. I'll always be doing that. And I've got a lot of videos planned this upcoming year. Lots of videos. And so I'll be back in the woods doing those, but in the interim I've got all kinds of other videos I can do, and health and nutrition and herbalism and different things. So I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I did making it today. Please like, subscribe, and share. I want to give a shout out to all of my new subscribers that I've been picking up recently. I really appreciate your support and your viewership. Glad to have you here. You'll notice one thing on this channel: you'll never see a commercial. I will never monetize this channel. I'm very much against commercialization. I know businesses have to advertise in order to drive a customer base in their direction, but we're bombarded, our psyches are bombarded daily with advertisements. Television and radio, and I mean, it's everywhere, billboards, and I don't want to bombard you, the viewers, with advertisements here. I try to keep my channel very simple, direct, to the point, informative. This is an instructional channel. It's not entertaining. It's not television. Nothing scripted. And I'm not a video expert, and I'm not an actor, so I do the best that I can, but I am knowledgeable in some areas, and I want to share that with all of you. And I charge nothing for it. With that said, I hope all of you are having an outstanding day or night, depending on where you are located, and I will see all of you very soon on the next one. Everybody have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.